Victor's awake and finally starting to talk. All of Genoa City knows that JT is the one that attacked Victor, and now JT's body has been dumped, for lack of a better word. Stay tuned for this week's Restless Wrap.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Goodman, back with another crazy week on YNR. I say that every single week. We had the emotional roller coaster last week of everything happening with JT and Victoria. We went from there into a week where everyone, well, when I say everyone, we have Sharon, Victoria, Nikki, and Phyllis basically dealing with this dead body that they have in Victoria's house. So let's jump in here. Before we get started on talking about YNR today, I just want to give a couple of shout outs. We have a lot of people in the chat. Thank you all for being co-hosts today. We have Plex Amber's X, aka Tiffany, Simone Francois, we have Hubby Joe, we have Demo, we have Blue Maven, we have Maxwell Comics, we have Sarah B Videos, Ryan Carey. Thank you all for joining. Of course, you're all my co-hosts. I'll be reading your comments out loud. We did have a couple people leave a comment on the Facebook Restless Wrap page, at Restless Wrap, in case you haven't liked or subscribed, or liked or followed, I should say, not subscribed. We have Amy Williamson, speaking on last week's show, said also, think maybe JT is not really dead, but just has a very faint pulse. Hopefully he will come back for another stint. So let's just touch base on this whole JT not being dead thing really fast. And everyone in the chat, what do you think about it? This is what I think, and I was talking to my husband about this, at Hubby Joe, shout out to him. This is what I think. First of all, they, for anyone who doesn't know yet, they buried JT's body in the park that is dedicated to, at Chancellor Park. Basically, right in that area where they were doing construction, which I thought was really stupid, first of all, to do it there in a spot where everyone's going to be able to, if they're doing construction there or work, that's the first place where they're going to find a dead body that is just being buried there. So I thought that was kind of dumb. But number two, I think that JT is alive, so I am going to agree with that statement because I have a feeling it's going to be Kill Bill style, where basically JT digs his way out of his grave and he's alive, and he comes back to haunt them all. That's what I think. I think it's either that or somehow it wasn't even his body that they buried, that they thought it was, or that, I don't know, that, because I'm trying to remember, I think that when they wrapped him up, they saw the body after they took him out of the carpet, so I guess they would know that it was his. Somehow I just think that there's something that, I think he's alive. I don't think he's dead. But let's hear what everyone else thinks in the chat. Maxwell Comics says, I saw a preview where a hand comes out of the dirt, and I hope it's a dream because how would he come back to life? It's dumb. So I agree with you. I don't think it logically makes any sense that he would come back to life. I just have a feeling that he will, and that's the angle they're going with the show. Clicks Amber's X says, I don't know what to think. I hope he's dead, but I think the one thing YNR really did well was faked Adam's death like 3 times, and so now we can't trust any death. Maxwell Comics, how can he wake up and survive in the dirt? That's a good question, and that's actually what my husband was saying too. If the guy if he was somehow still alive and they buried him, he would suffocate. I agree with you. It makes logical sense. I just think somehow he is going to be alive, and they're going to write it into the story, and we're still going to have to deal with him, and that he's going to go on a rampage, and that maybe Nick will go on a rampage against him. But we will talk about Nick and everything in a moment. Simone says, I think JT is dead and someone watched the women bury him. Okay, so people know. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so let's get into this a little bit. Just a couple other comments here. Tiffany says, not a big takeaway this week for me. Basically, glad it is so far. Glad JT is so far dead. Glad Devon and Lily's father is back. And glad he kicked Hillary out of the office. Glad to see Devon is coming to his senses about how having a baby with Hillary is a mistake. Glad to see Paul kinda doing his job for once. Glad to see Kyle get that stupid smirk knocked off his face for a bit. Actually really annoyed to see how jealous of Victor's lover, Nikki, is, considering she's been sleeping with Arturo for weeks. Lastly, Appreciation Award of the Week goes to Eric Braeden because watching Victor use all the strength he had to say, JT did this to me, was completely heartbreaking. And I definitely want to agree with that, especially the last part about Victor. Eric Braeden, yeah, that acting was phenomenal. That was just... I wasn't sure. I had never seen Victor in a coma before. I'm not sure if he's ever been in a coma. As long as I've been watching the show, he has not been. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen with that, but his acting was spot on. It actually felt like someone was dealing with a brain injury and that they were really struggling this whole last week and this week when Victor was starting to speak again. Yeah. Definitely round of applause for him because that acting was really, it was incredible. Okay, so let's talk about Victoria, JT's body, all of that. So we started off this week where basically Victoria, they're all kind of standing around debating what to do. Phyllis is the one to basically say, no, we shouldn't go to the police, where Victoria kind of is thinking, well, why shouldn't we? And Phyllis, first of all, Mariah is still a little bit drunk at this point. She comes to the door. Sharon has to take her home after what Sharon claims she basically kind of felt Mariah out to make sure that Mariah didn't actually remember or see anything, so that she wasn't one of the co-conspirators in this murder. So from what Sharon figured out, so she claims, Mariah didn't know anything, so she just took her home and came back. So I'll be curious because Mariah, while she was still kind of drunk, told Sharon that she still kind of remembered things, but then she thought what she was remembering was just that she told everyone that she kissed a girl and liked it. That's all that Mariah seem to remember, but I have a feeling Mariah is going to end up remembering more than what she thinks she remembers right now, and that's going to be another problem. The other problem, I think, is going to be with Nick. I don't understand. I mean, I guess I kind of understand why they're keeping him out of the loop, but I think that they should really just tell him what's going on. So Sharon takes Mariah home. They go back. Meanwhile, Paul shows up, and he starts asking questions, and Victoria kind of is the one in her car to start the lie by not telling Paul exactly what happened. So at this point, whether or not Victoria was debating on telling the police, whether any of them were debating, when Paul shows up, that ship has sailed because they have basically decided, all right, well, we're not going to do anything with this. We're not going to do anything with going to the police with this. We're just going to keep it to ourselves and handle it. Phyllis's big point was that there wasn't gonna be enough proof from Victoria that there was any kind of physical violence. Here's the thing. Now, I agree that the burden might be on Victoria, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but I still think that it would have been obviously better for them to go to the police. That would have been the easier situation and not a soapy. So of course they didn't do that, but it just feels like I see where Phyllis is coming from, but I think that Paul would have been a lot more understanding, and I think that the case would have gone in Victoria's favor because she had multiple witnesses seeing this guy attacking her. So it wasn't just like it was Victoria's word, it's Victoria and all these other people's word against JT. So especially a guy who's wanted for murder, potentially, which I get what Phyllis was saying, but I don't agree with her thought process. Clicks Ambers, Mariah, my poor sweet baby. Simone, I think Mariah is going to remember something. I thought she was going to when she heard the news report on the TV. That's what I thought too. I thought that's where they were going with it, where suddenly she was having some kind of aha moment where, this memory was coming back to her. And it might, but so far we haven't heard anything. Maxwell comments, if they tell Nick and Victor, they will understand. That's the thing too that bugged me. Now, everyone who's listening live in the chat, or if you're not listening live and you want to drop a comment, what I'm confused about is why I think they should have told Nick. They definitely should have told Victor. That part confused me. Nikki didn't mention to Victor that she basically said that they handled it. And we'll get to this in a second, but she didn't tell Victor the full truth. And I think Victor would have been, if he could, he would have been clapping his hands at that point. Thank you, Nikki, for taking care of this. But instead, she decided not to tell him the truth. And I think that's going to bite her too, as well as this whole thing they're doing with Helen Wallace now, especially, we'll get to that in a second. So, Tiffany, anyone find it annoying how Paul is only a good cop when it's a convenience for everyone else. Definitely annoying. Simone, I did not think Paul would railroad Nikki. They have a son together. He knows she is no cold-blooded killer. Yeah, and that's the thing is I think that Paul would have tried to help them in the situation, especially if they told him the full truth. The hard drive thing, not the hard drive, the iPad that Paul ends up finding on JT's side of the closet, that's probably what's going to come back to bite them, because obviously we know as the viewer what Paul's going to find on that hard drive with the video footage of JT strangling Victoria. So I feel like at that point Paul is going to have a lot more questions, and it's just going to dig a deeper grave, and now it's just going to be kind of obvious that Victoria had something to do with JT's disappearance. So meanwhile, Victoria and everyone, they're trying to fix this mess. That's when they get into the debate about whether or not they're going to go to the police. Victor, so Victoria, they end up taking the body to Chancellor Park. And as they're burying him, Victoria says, I should be the one. And she ends up scooping a pile of dirt into the grave, and that's that. So that's the thing, is that we kind of are left with, okay, yeah, his body's in the grave. I still don't think he's done. I think he's coming back. I think that that's what they're going to do. Who knows? Maybe not. But it just feels like there's something else that we're not seeing yet. And that's interesting about what Maxwell said with the hand coming out of the dirt in the preview. We'll see what happens with that. So meanwhile, we have everything happening with Victoria. They bury the dead body. It still kind of haunts them throughout the whole week. Nikki, there's kind of a couple things to mention with her. Nikki ends up going to Newman Enterprises, and she tells Victoria and Ashley that she's going to be the one who ends up taking over as CEO until Victor is ready. I found that interesting. I kind of called that, though, as she was having this conversation with them. Neither one of them looked pleased, but I was actually kind of happy to see Nikki taking over as opposed to Ashley, because that kind of seemed like what they were maybe... at first, I was worried that it was going to go to Ashley. Not that I don't like Ashley, but I just feel like if Ashley got it, she would basically try to take over the company and not give it back to Victor. Okay, so we can touch a little bit more on Nikki and Victor next. Before we do, though, I just wanted to make a little bit of an announcement. There is an exciting podcast that I think anyone who likes Y&R might want to check out. It's called Conversations with Maria Menounos. It's hosted by our AfterBuzz TV founder and drops every Friday on iTunes. Conversations with Maria Menounos features celebrity and influencer interviews, along with secrets and tips on how to be better in all aspects of life, from health and wellness to career, relationships, and finances, and more. Let our Maria be the big sister you've always wanted. Just go to iTunes and subscribe to Conversations with Maria Menounos for free. Be sure to rate and comment, and when you do, let Maria know it was us who sent you there. Conversations with Maria Menounos, podcast edition. Check it out. Okay, so now in the show, I'm going to let you guys know that for anyone who's listening live, we are taking calls tonight as we get into our next topics. The number that you can dial if you're listening live is 424-253-0749. So if you're listening live right now, the number is 424-253-0749. Go ahead and give us a call, and we can discuss, next up, let's talk about Nikki and Victor and everything happening with that. So basically, we start off the week with Victor. He's finally able to not really talk at first, but he finally says, he spells out JT's name. Nick doesn't know why. So Nick's the one visiting him. Finally, Victor says, JT did this to me, and he says it in a very hard, like you can tell that it was a struggle for him. That's why I think the acting was phenomenal this week on his part, because he was able to get that across without seeming like he was trying too much. As I said last week, sometimes we have certain performances from certain actors that seem very over the top and just melodramatic. So with Eric Braeden as Victor, it just seemed like it was very natural and realistic. So thanks for calling Restless Rap. This is Rachel. Who's on the line?
Matt.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. So I was just about to talk about Nikki and Victor and Victor's recovery. So what did you think about, first of all, how did you feel about Victor coming out of the coma and everything with that?
I was like very happy because it was like finally it's gonna say who did it, and he did, and it was great. And then Nick called, and it was great. It was everything I wanted to happen in terms of him like waking up and like telling everyone what happened. But what I think is pointless and dumb is like okay, he has a side chick, that's fine, it's logical. Nikki has one, Victor has one, but like for him to but what just seems out of character for Victor is like him bringing him home, and like just like rubbing it in Nikki's face.
Yeah.
That's a little mean.
Unless he knew about Arturo, and
he probably does. Like,
yeah.
Victor is like God. He knows everything. He knows nothing gets past him. Like I think Nikki thought that she was being like slick and like pulling one over. Victor knew.
Yeah, there was enough people knew for Victor to also have known. So, and especially when Victor started saying, "Well, where were you that night? Where were you, Nikki?" But it just seemed very like this whole thing where Victor is bringing Helen around seems. I mean, I've never seen him with a mistress before. This is my first time seeing that on the soap.
He's had him before.
Yeah, it just seems interesting that he's very obvious about it. So what do you think?
He could have been this obvious about it.
Yeah, it's so weird. And then obviously Nikki's offended. Do you think that this is going to change their marriage now after the coma and after Helen Wallace?
It's not. Victor and Nikki are always going to be going back and forth. Like maybe they'll get back together for 2 seconds, maybe a little bit. They're always going to have this like push and pull relationship. I think right now Nikki's just going to like go back and super Arturo because it's like it's fun because I don't think she's so much mad as she is. Like it's kind of more of a petty madness. It's not like a oh my God you betrayed my trust. It's just like a oh I thought I was doing it, so now you're doing this too. Because Nikki can't be mad because she's doing it too.
She can't be, and that's the whole thing is that she's acting so jealous, but she's doing. I mean, we don't even know the extent of the relationship with Helen and Victor. It seemed like Helen really had feelings for him, though, the way she was acting. But at the same time, we know what Nikki's doing, and she's just. To me, it doesn't make sense that she would be this jealous.
For all we know, Helen is just like some girl that Victor hired to just play his mistress to make Nikki jealous.
Yeah, and that could be exactly it. And then the whole thing, yeah, I could definitely see that happening. It seems like a way that Victor would play it. I think even if he didn't hire her, Victor is just playing it as an angle to get Nikki to admit certain things.
Because I don't think you could ever do like a full affair like you would do with everybody else. Because those actors, like they're like. Of course, they've been on the show forever, so I guess they get certain privileges. So I think both of them are married. So but a lot of actors are married. But what I'm saying is, like, I think they have the clout to be like, hey, I'm not going to physically kiss anybody on set. Because if you notice, like, for Nikki and Arturo scenes, like, it'll like pan away or it'll, like be a shot where it's like it's implied what they're doing, but you don't see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they haven't. I feel the actors have enough clout. Like it's not confirmed, but I think they're probably like, hey, we make this show so much money. We're married. We don't feel comfortable kissing other people on camera.
Yeah.
So like so I don't feel like they could ever do like a full like affair scene now with like. So I don't think it's gonna last.
Yeah, and if they did, I'm sure they would just keep cutting away. And it just seems like,
yeah.
I know that Nikki and Victor, here's the thing too, they brought Jack into it again. And it was like, come on.
And even with Nikki and Victor, like, even when they were a couple, they would never, kiss like everyone else kisses.
Yeah.
And the only explanation for it is like, they're married to people in their life and the actors have enough power since they're like literally the stars of the show to be like, hey, we're not going to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for calling in.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye. Okay, so we have a couple of comments in the chat here. Simone says, I do not think Paul would railroad Nikki. Okay, I think I read that one already. Tiffany, my only thing is, if Victor had cameras put in Victoria's house, who's to say there aren't any in the bedroom and the feed of the JT incident isn't on the iPad? That is a really good point. Now, here's the only question I have about that. if for some reason the feed did get into the iPad, my thought process would be, this is just from working IT in my past life, is that the iPad was no longer, it probably would have had to been connected to whatever security system Victor had back at his house. If somehow it was still connected, then maybe the footage got onto that iPad. Who knows? That would be really interesting if there is a camera in the bedroom. The only difference is that they did kind of hint at it more when they were downstairs before anything happened with JT, because they were showing the incident happening they were showing the room in like a black and white contour, coloring scheme. So you could kind of like sense, wait, why does it look like this? And then the reveal was that Victor had that footage. But you never know. The whole thing could be on camera, and then it wouldn't matter because they would have proof that JT was hurting her. Now at that point, I don't know what they would be charged with. Maybe just, lying. But it was self-defense if they have it, especially if they have it on camera. Awesome. Thanks for calling Restless Rap. This is Rachel. Who's on the line?
Hi, Rachel. It's Tiffany.
Hey, Tiffany. So we were just talking, I was actually just talking about your comment about the security cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be interesting, though. What do you think that they would do if they end up finding that footage and it's actually on the iPad?
You know what? I don't know. I think overall, even if it's not that case where there's like I don't know if Victor would be that creepy to put a camera in their bedroom per se.
Yeah.
But, because Paul did take the iPad, so you have to know that that's going to play a part in something with finding the other video where JT was hurting Victoria. He's bound to find that, and that's going to I feel like that's definitely going to raise questions with Paul. He's definitely going to have reason to question the girls now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's going to put more pressure on Victoria, because Paul's probably going to assume that this was happening a lot and that Victoria might have more of a role than what she's saying in all of this.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously at this point, Paul doesn't have any suspicions that JT's dead, but trying to find him is going to be interesting, especially with everything happening with Reed. What did you think about everything with Reed and how Victoria and Nikki were handling that?
You know what? I don't have the strongest feelings with Reed. He's kind of just like one of those characters that's like, well, he's there. But you know what? I feel like, especially since it took him so long to come around to actually opening himself up to having a relationship with JT again, I feel like he does have a right to kind of, it's understandable as to why he's on the fence of not completely believing what they're saying. But at the same time, I don't think it's right of him to automatically assume that it's all Victoria's fault,
Yeah, exactly.
It's like she wouldn't have just, she's the one that kept pushing you to have this relationship with your father. She didn't intentionally go and screw things up. Like, it was not her fault at all. And us as the viewers, we know that. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens when Reed finds out what actually led to them breaking up, past what he did to JT.
Yeah.
Or not what JT did to Victor.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, is that because Reed wouldn't even believe it. He didn't want to believe that his dad would do that. Because even back, if we think back to like when they were in the hospital and JT was holding Reed, giving him a hug, like, who would do something so terrible to Victor? It's just sad that, Reed was finally starting to have this little bit of a relationship with JT. And the whole thing, even though we don't like JT, it's still sad for Reed because now he's in a situation, he's already a struggling teen, just the way that, everything he's, going through right now. So it's just going to be hard for him. I'm curious if he's going to keep acting out or if he's going to calm down, because he just wasn't doing so great before.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to keep acting out. I actually feel like they might, now, granted, like I said, I haven't been consistently watching since January. Like, I've finally gotten around to consistently watching. But I don't know if during the time that I found the show and now if Maddie's in a relationship. But I know that they kind of had a thing with Maddie and Reed, and I feel like they're going to come back to that.
Yeah, so it was...
I feel like Reed's going to keep acting out, and Maddie's going to be the one that has to kind of bring him back down to ground, you know?
Yeah, that would be awesome. The whole thing, basically, with Maddie and Reed was that, I don't know if you were watching at this point, but maybe back in, maybe about a year ago now, there's this whole court case with this woman named Juliet where basically it was Kane and he had slept with her, and Lily found out, and it created this whole drama, and Kane got fired from Brash and Sassy. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that Reed and Maddie wanted to be together was causing all these problems because their parents were having problems. So it was this, basically relationship where they couldn't really be together. And then finally they could, but then JT was drinking and then doing things that were kind of reckless. And so it just escalated to the point where Maddie couldn't be with him anymore because he basically he started driving and he had drank, and that was where Maddie was like, no, I can't do this anymore. So it would make sense that Maddie would come back into the picture and be there for him. The whole thing was sad because they were actually they seemed like a good couple together. They seemed like they really cared about each other. So the whole the
thing is that I came to realize this with my friend the other day. I don't feel like there's a whole bunch of characters. There's a small group of characters that are around the same age at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's a handful, and we even saw that with the girls' night, how they were struggling to actually think of people that were women around Victoria's age to have this girls' night with. So it's there's really not a whole lot of options for Reed anyway. So it's let's just go back to Maddie, why don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, they had, even with the girl that Hillary was mentoring, they had this brief thing with Charlie where he was basically kind of hitting on that girl, but then she left and hasn't been in the picture. So I completely agree with you. They don't have too many people of that same age range right now. But basically, I'm curious what's going to happen with JT. I'm curious if Mariah knows anything about JT. How did you feel about that?
With the whole Mariah, JT situation thing?
Yeah, where basically she was saying she remembered something, and then it wasn't that at all. But I feel like Mariah knows something.
Well, I'm going to give Mariah more credit than she probably needs because Mariah is my girl. But I definitely feel like she has to know something. It's just a level of what and, what's going to actually spark those memories. Because I feel like even though, she was passed out and drunk and everything else, and the only thing she remembers is telling the other girls that she kissed a girl, I feel like there has to be something lodged in her memory. And I feel like there might have been a little twinge of something whenever she saw it on the news. That's why her instinct was automatically to call somebody and find out what was going on.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. The other thing, too, is that I don't feel like Sharon's going to be able to hide it from her for very long. Because if there's one person outside of Nick that Sharon can't hide things from, it's definitely Mariah.
Yeah, and I think that we don't even know where she was passed out. That's the other thing. Mm-hmm. They could have even said, oh, let's take her out and get her some air. Maybe she saw JT drive away. Not drive away. Maybe she saw him. Maybe she saw his car. Maybe she saw him walking around. We don't know where she was. We don't even know if she was actually in the house or what. So I'll be interested to see what she does remember. I feel like it's going to be more. But thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice to get to rant a little and discuss the week with you as well, always.
Yeah, always. Well, I hope you have a good week, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Nice
Bye.
talking to you.
You too. Bye. Okay, so let's get into Hillary and Devon since we did have a lot with that. First, let's check in with the chat. We have Sarah B. Videos. Go Tiffany. I don't like Reed. Simone. Nikki has no reason to be jealous. She practically told Ashley to get back with him. She practically did. Hubby Joe. It's funny how Nikki is jealous and called Arturo, and he was busy. Yeah, well, she kind of brushed Arturo off for a while. That's why I thought she was going to be done with him, but I guess not. Simone. Reed is not going to believe JT is a monster at first. Hubby Joe. Reed is a spoiled kid. He needs to be put in his place. Okay. So let's get awesome. Thanks for calling Restless Rap. This is Rachel. Who's on the line?
Hey, Rachel. It's Mel from Brooklyn.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good.
I was about to talk about Hillary and Devon. So what? Do you have any thoughts on that this week and everything going on with Neil and what Hillary's doing?
Well, you know what? I hope that Neil. You know what's so interesting? I think that what's so interesting again about Neil. And, I'm sorry, I'm getting a blank. About Neil and Victor and Jack, that these guys, they are so preoccupied with their obsession, basically, with the ladies of their lives, whether it's Neil with my brain is in the fog, with Hillary.
Yeah.
I think Hillary is to Neil what Phyllis is to Jack, I think, and what Nikki is to Victor. They are also preoccupied with these women, and I think that they all need to just let go for a little bit. Let the relationship breathe, or just sort of let go and move on, because I think that when Neil came back, he just was going in a little too hard. I agree with some of the things he was saying, and I'm not a Hillary fan, although I think that the way the actress plays her is delicious. I think that she's fantastic. But I think that, for him to come back and see the change, I understand him being a little, I guess a little like, what in the hell is going on here? But with his situation that happened with Hillary is almost like 8 years ago, so long ago, that he should be over it and be like, okay, I'm in business with somebody and making decisions I understand. It can't be that personal, but you're still obsessed with Hillary. And I think that I'm only saying because I love Neil, I love Victor, and I love Jack. I think that when they're ruled by their obsessions, they become one note, and they don't become as dynamic as they truly are. Like if you look back at some of the classic clips from the '90s and the early 2000s, they are fantastic, especially when they're in love or they find love that sort of equals them. And when they sort of go around just sort of obsessing over these girls or these women, it makes them one note, and they deserve better than that. So I say that with Neil too. He deserves better. He deserves a dynamic relationship. Hopefully he'll get one, but just sit around and be obsessed with Hillary is not a good thing. I don't like it.
Yeah, and to me, it came off very harsh. I agree with you. I think that it's one thing to say, okay, business partners and nothing more. For him the way he was kind of treating Devon too, I didn't like, because it's supposed to be a partnership at this point, right? It's not just Neil's company. So I think that Devon, he should have given him more of a say in what was happening.
And also, I think that the best revenge or the best sort of thing, you see, for me in my own life, and I think anybody who's listening, if you're annoyed to the highest level, the best thing for that situation is surrender. Because even if somebody wants you to be their friend and they're annoying you or they hurt you or whatever, and you go, I'll forget it, it's gone. And a little bit of their ego is going to get hurt that you're not so invested in that. So the best thing to do in a situation is to surrender and let go, truly. And in that way, you can move on and go, oh, well, she's in the company. Oh, that's fantastic. So this is happening. That's great. You figure out a way to make sure the business is successful, but you don't have to be so vocal because it shows you how much you care. And it's like a weakness. I love Neil. I love Victor. I love Jack. When they are dynamic and they're fully rounded, but when they sort of one note, obsessed with taking people down or obsessed with the past and all that, it just bugs me, because they're better than that.
Yeah.
Very much so. But you know what? I was listening to the previous call, and I think that you had such a cute, great point that I'm a person who watched All My Children and all the other shows on ABC before they went off. And I guess it's just a sign of times, because I didn't think about it. But again, you bring up so many wonderful points, with observation. And you do. And so what you brought up tonight, and I didn't want to go past, is the younger characters or characters in general don't have the same age group people, like even with the younger kids, whatever. And it's true. I'm thinking again, all my children, or even in the show maybe 10 years ago, they had a whole world for all the people of all ages. And I guess it's just because of budgets. But I remember it was like a big storyline with the kids. You know, like they had maybe 10 kids because you could play up things. It'd be murder mysteries and it'd be so many things. Now you can't even date because there's not enough people to play with.
There's
So
barely,
I think, yeah, I think that sometimes the producers and the people need to realize that maybe they need some side people, some B people to play with the main characters, just to bump it up a little bit, so that way, you know, it won't seem so impotent. Basically, you know, like you just have these people meandering around and they don't have anything to do. It's sad, you know. They need to have some things to happen too.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
I agree with
And
you.
I think, and that's what I said last thing. I think that with JT. I think that the only thing I never disagree with you. I disagree with the fact that I think that Nikki was smart. I think that she shouldn't have told Victor what she did with the ladies. I think because it seems like now the way they write him, every time someone reveals a secret to the man, whether it be Chloe or who I forgot the lady who just left, but yeah, every time someone reveals a secret to Victor, he uses it against them.
That's
True. Recently. So. I wouldn't reveal that I took a grape at the supermarket to the man. I truly wouldn't, because he would use it against you. I would not reveal nothing to that man. Absolutely not. Not right now. He's too blood hungry. So I think that the ladies made a good decision. But I think that they might do what they did on Days of Our Lives, where there was this villain who turned bad, and they thought they killed him off. They hit him over the head. They shot him. They put him in the water. And he came back and he tortured him for a long time and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think they might do that with JT too.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how they handle that. But thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you. Like the other lady said, it's just good to have a place where you can vent and talk to other people who's watching the same show.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
Yep.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. Okay, so with the time that we have left, we look and see if there's any other comments in the chat. So Blue Maven says they didn't have to cover it up since it was self-defense with JD's death. Nikki only attacked JT because she saw him attacking Vicky. Plus Sharon and Phyllis saw it happening. I agree with you completely on that. Tiffany says, I'm so beyond okay with Neil being upset about the whole Hillary Devon baby thing. I laughed so hard when he kicked her out of the office. Also, can we talk about him forcing Hillary onto Tessa? Like she may barely be there anymore. When she is, she gets to deal with that. We have Aaron, who just joined the chat. And then Tiffany, just saying we're talking about JT and Victor. Okay, so let's just touch on everything a little bit with Hillary and Devon a little bit more, and then we'll get into a little bit with Kyle, and then we'll get to our law moment. So Neil is very upset with what was happening with Hillary and the whole baby situation. They even end up having, first of all, they had this meeting that was supposed to be family only, and Hillary shows up. I didn't know whose side I was really on. I guess I'm kind of on Devon's side. I feel bad for him. But Lily is annoying me right now. Neil was kind of just being very too aggressive about the whole thing. And then Hillary was annoying me too, because I didn't know whether to believe her or not. Because it seemed like she was playing games, and the whole fainting thing with Hillary. I'm pretty sure that, I'm guessing it's real, but obviously Devon doesn't believe her. Devon ends up going back to the bar the restaurant with Simone. And while he's there with Simone, all Devon does is briefly mention Hillary's name, but not even in a bad way. He's just telling Simone that the whole thing with the baby isn't gonna, that he's not gonna try to have a baby with her anymore, basically. And Hillary was walking by and happens to hear her name, and she freaks out on Devon. It made no sense to me. I know that they're in the same place, it's a public place, but Devon is still entitled to have a conversation, and the way that Hillary was acting, I understand maybe she would get upset, but it just seemed like she was overreacting and just being very melodramatic about the whole thing. So I didn't understand that. I'm not sure if the fainting is actually real or if it's just completely, planned so that she'll get Devon's attention. I have no idea. I'll be curious if Hillary is actually pregnant, but just because you're fainting and you're feeling like that, I don't know. That's not usually what I equate someone being pregnant with, but maybe, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So the other thing I just want to point out is about Hillary constantly mentioning that if she has a baby, the baby will be the heir to the company, and that's not how it works. I mean, I don't know what Devon and Hillary signed in terms of the paperwork, but I would imagine that the baby wouldn't necessarily be heir to a company unless Neil and Devon agreed that this baby was going to be the one who eventually took over the company, but it doesn't work like that. Not always. Hubby Joe, Hillary needs to go. She's using the baby to get into the company and be an executive. She keeps saying that she has big ideals for the company. Aaron, Hillary becomes a mom. If this baby doesn't make her calm down, I don't know what will. I don't know that it will at this point, because back around Christmas when she was starting to calm down and be nicer, I thought she was taking over, and like basically going to be a little bit different, but she does not seem like she's going to change, and I don't know if she's even pregnant. I think she's just faking the whole thing. Okay, so let's get into Kyle really fast. So basically, just to mention with him, Jack finally gets out of jail, just in time to stop that meeting from going where Kyle was going to bring the company, Jabot, public. As he's talking, he's just about to do it when Ashley is going to get up and actually reveal that the true paternity of Jack, that he's not really an Abbott, and it was about to get really messy. Jack walks in, saves the day, basically says, nope, my company, I'm taking it back. The only thing with Jack is that Kyle is acting very strange, saying he wants to work by Jack's side and that he's not leaving Genoa City. So we kind of ended on that note where Kyle is obviously up to something. We don't know exactly what, but he tells Jack that he's in Genoa City for good and that he wants to build up a relationship with him, but with the company he wants to help. But we know that from some of the previews that Kyle is not up to anything good, especially when it comes to Victor. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's go ahead and get to our law moment. This week I had 3. So the first one was when we first see Neil come back. We're seeing Devon and Hillary fight. As soon as they are arguing big time over Simone, suddenly the camera angles at Neil. Neil comes in, he has a couple of words, and then just the way that the camera was angled on Neil, he looked like some kind of action hero. I almost wrote down Rambo, except for obviously he didn't look like Rambo, but just the way that they angled the camera made him look like he was angry. I had my second law moment was when Nick and Sharon were talking about the ice cream. Great, now I'm going to be counting chunks all night. That was his response to Sharon with this whole ice cream, all because Sharon was complaining, kind of jokingly, I guess, that Nick went into the ice cream, took a spoonful, and because he took a spoonful of ice cream, he was taking all the chunks, and that's how she put it. So my thing is, why did the writers choose to have Nick say that he was counting chunks? He's going to be counting chunks all night. Yeah, that kind of didn't sound like ice cream to me. In any case, my last law moment was at the very end of this week, we had Ashley and Abby. They were throwing away this flash drive that, this memory card, not a flash drive, the memory card that apparently was the only lasting survival of the story of Jack's true paternity. And they go and they throw it in the fireplace, and the fire's burning right as Kyle comes in. When Ashley and Abby leave, Kyle comes back in, uses the fire poker. Just like that, he finds the memory card. Just like that, he finds it, and the memory card has not been burned at all. I laughed at all these moments. Okay, so on that note, we have a couple more comments. We have Aaron Brody, Hillary almost died when she fell off that cliff years ago. Aaron, Devon still loves Hillary. Hubby Joe, I agree at Klex Ambers. Hashtag death to Hillary. Hashtag the Maria hour. Hashtag go away Kyle. And then Tiffany, get them trending on Twitter. Tiffany, hashtag the Mariah hour. Aaron, they're not going to get rid of Hillary. She's too important to the show. Aaron Brody, yes, now Kyle can die. So, all right. On that note, thank you all for joining this week on Restless Rap. My name is Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Rach Goodman or on Facebook at Rachel Ann Goodman. We also have our Facebook page at Restless Rap. So if you want to stay up to date on the link to the show, and if you want to comment, I will read your comments. It's at Restless Rap. Thank you all. Have a great week and see you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.